Guys, a little more applause. They're still making it to the stage.
I'll keep them apart.
A rose between two thorns.
Marty loves this shit.
Hey
So-
now!
So if you'd like to take questions, talk, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you want to do.
The Pirates gonna win tonight. That's baseball. It's a game. PNC Park. Who's pitching for the Dodgers? Does anyone know? Kershaw. Okay. I'm just trying to get it off topic. I'm sure you want to talk about this movie, but I don't know. Anyways, great to be here. And
Are we running this ourselves?
right now we are.
Okay.
No, people want to ask a question. We have a roving question guy here.
Yeah, so we can just...
Anybody who has a question, just raise your hand and I'll come to you with the microphone.
That's
So,
a good way to get started.
Okay,
start right over here. You're number one.
First of all, thank you for ever making that movie like years ago. When I was a kid, it was the whole reason I got into martial arts. Thank you. My question is, did any of you do any martial arts training after the movie? Like, did it get you interested or no?
For me, no. I know I'm disappointing everyone. Their answers are a lot better than mine. I got beat up so much, I'm like, why continue doing this? I really respect the philosophy and everything behind it, and but you know, I didn't keep it up as much as Billy is going to go into right now.
Well, I didn't do 5 of them back to back. You were training the whole time.
That's right.
Ralph never left training. For me, it was one movie, 3 months. He went on for the next 5 years. So he had Pat Johnson, a personal trainer, for 5 solid years or something. So I got in his little training for a while. I went to a real Tom Pseudo school and followed up on it. Never got my black belt, as though it's online somewhere that I got my black belt. It's not true. So, but I love the arts, and it was great to know, and still is. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. It was really nice beating up Billy in a couple of movies after that. Because he lost with Ralph, and I never forget him.
That's why he's sitting over there. We're across the room from each other. It's pretty ugly.
I went on and did a couple of movies I shouldn't have done, and scripts that I read that had a martial artist in them that I thought I could improve this script by doing a good performance, and of course, con yourself into doing that. It never really works. You know, if it's not material's not on the page like Robin came and put it on the page of Karate Kid, then it's not going to be there once you see the movie. But I worked on a lot of different pictures after that, Steel Justice and some martial arts movies, and interesting stuff. And you know, we were planning to do another movie called The Lion of Ireland about Brian Boru, and it was a lot of kendo work. But it was a great, foundation to work with Pat Johnson, and he trained us all separately. So
Pat Johnson is the guy who plays the referee in the All Valley Karate Championship. So to put a face to the name we've been mentioning, he trained all of us for the movie. He's a great stunt coordinator on the film as well, and highly respected and a great person on top of that. So props out to him.
Got a question over here for you.
yeah, he's moving around there. There we go.
Hello, I just want to say I took my children to see that movie, Karate Kid, and also I watched you on Dancing with the Stars, and you were terrific.
Billy was great, wasn't he? Thank you very much, I appreciate it. Yeah, Dancing with the Stars is one of those things, they came to me a few times and I'm like, I'm not going to do this show. I even was on in my house, my wife would watch. I was like, it's like Gilligan, I'm not going to wear a dress. I'm not going to wear a dress. Cut, and there's Gilligan in the dress. There I was. But it was the right time to do the show. The remake, which we don't talk about too much, of the Karate Kid came out right before then. So America was right to cheer me on. It was really great, and we all had a great time about it. We did a Jimmy Kimmel thing, and Billy did a hilarious Jimmy Kimmel thing. For it, and it was really positive. So thanks for mentioning that. And And thanks for coming out and cheering me on for that, for my run in Vietnam on the dance floor.
Okay, we got a question over here.
Hi guys, so my question was, how many people auditioned with you when you guys were auditioning for the role? Was there like 100 people? Was there 10 people? And after you guys auditioned, were they like, you guys are perfect, you got it, or you didn't know when you left, or how did that work?
That's a good question. Why don't you answer?
I'll go. Ralph was cast when I got involved, so I was reading with Ralph. Yeah, I came into an audition. I came from the commercial acting world, so I did a number of commercials from when I was 12. And in the commercial world, it was like really kind of friendly. It was not really competitive. It was like, hey, I saw you in Milk, and oh, you up for Legos, and all that. And suddenly I'm on audition for a movie called The Karate Kid, and I'm playing, the head bad guy of this motorcycle gang in black belt, and I didn't know karate. Anyway, so I went to the audition. First of all, thinking I really didn't have a chance of getting it because I wasn't qualified that way. But when I went into the room, there was probably, I don't know, maybe on that call, 15 or 20 guys in there, and all of them were trying to out Johnny, the next guy, and there was not a warm, friendly room, and it kind of pushed me out to my dad's 1975 red Volvo, where I sat inside the parking lot and cranked some Zebra, and literally sat there for about 15 minutes, and they came out and called me in. So I was intimidated being in the room with all the guys that were tougher than me and being meaner than me, and then I went into the audition, and then they called me back, and that's when I met Ralph, who I was familiar with from The Outsiders, and so I was kind of intimidated by Ralph actually in real life, even though I intimidated him in the movie. He's much a bigger bully in real life. Very, very hardcore. So anyway, went in and read with Ralph, and then I remember staying out in the parking lot afterwards because there were a few guys left reading with him, and I kind of hunted him down. I was like, hey, do you remember this? And they said, how'd it go? And you're like, well, everybody was mean, but I told John you scared the S out of me. Yeah, and I thought, oh, that's cool, So, but I still didn't hear anything for a little while, and I got one last call back, and it was to come with my sweatpants on to meet a guy named Pat Johnson. The director wasn't there. He brought me into a room with a bunch of pads, and he bent me in every different direction to see if I could stretch out, and got on some bat phone and called somebody and told me to go home. And I had no idea. This was over a period of a month, maybe a month and a half. And then I got a phone call that day from my commercial agent saying, you got it. And I said, which part? They're like, oh, there's more than one. I'm like, there's a whole gang. I'm like, Johnny, Bobby, Tommy, Dutch, who am I? And then they call me back and they say, Johnny? I'm like, yes, that's the main guy.
He's great. How perfect was he in that movie? I mean, he was awesome. My story is I met John Avildsen in New York. I'm leaving Marty's story for last because he has definitely the best casting story. But I met John Avildsen, our director in New York, and I read with him on tape, just one-on-one. And that, incidentally, on YouTube, you can find these auditions. My first reading is on YouTube. John Avildsen has a YouTube page, and you can see my first audition. And he was pretty impressed right at the time, and he told me to start taking some karate classes. I thought that was a good sign. And I read with Elizabeth Shue and Leah Thompson, a couple other girls at that time, and Lisa, I call Lisa, Elizabeth Lisa Shue. We hit it off right away. And then it was just a little bit of a waiting game. I know guys like Charlie Sheen, Robert Downey Jr. were in the running, but I think I was the front runner. It was just about, they found me pretty early because I didn't shoot for probably 3 months after that. So it was just one of those things, right guy, right time, right kid, right movie, and here we are 31 years later. Unbelievable. Anyway, so that's my casting story.
The story that I have is that it sort of took place chronologically in a much shorter period of time. On a Monday, I got a script from a woman named Carol Jones, the casting lady, and she said that they've been hunting for this character, Kreese, and you'll have all week to prepare. And I said, terrific. And it was a scene, Mercy is for the weak here on the streets, walking up and down the dojo. And the next morning I got a call, the director wants to see you at noon. I said, I thought I'd have a week with the script. And she said, no, it's now or never. So I had to go down to the school where they were, and my ex-wife said to me at the time, she knew how livid I was, she said, use all that venom you're feeling, use all that anger you're feeling towards these people, and go in there and just tell them what you think of them and go right into the speech. So I walked in the room, and there was John Avildsen, and there was Carol Jones, and I said, you know, John, We wait for years to meet directors of your caliber. We fire our agents, we fire our managers, but you're a real ass, John. You don't give me any time to prepare. Mercy is for the weak, here and on the streets, went right into it. And he loved it. Did the same thing with our, Jerry Weintraub, the producer, may he rest in peace. And he was 4 days late for the meeting, so I did the same routine, and I kind of told him that that he was late 4 days. I was on pins and needles. You're a real ass. Blah blah blah. Mercy's for the weak, and he loved it. Bottom line is, one got the part. And couldn't do that to the head of the studio. I tuned it down a little bit. But that's how I got the part. It was all within a week. So.
All right, we have a question over on this side of the room.
Hi, big fan of you all guys. You guys, obviously you're actors. During their sparring or anything like that, were there any actual injuries? Obviously you didn't break your leg, but were there any real things, like real hits that actually connected off scene or on camera?
Should you take this or me?
Well, you can take this guy. You did last time. And it was still an accident every time. I don't know how many times I have to tell you.
We were shooting the Halloween skeletons and Daniel at the fence when Miyagi comes to save the day and Daniel gets his knocked out and face kicked in.
You know, the comedy part of the movie.
The comedy. And I should have known that day when we were running across the field and they were chasing me and they kept slowing down the Cobra Kai because they all caught me way before I got to the fence. That's how crappy a runner I was. It was probably 3, 4 in the morning, or maybe even later than that. We were shooting a full night scene of that. And there was a fake, I believe it was a fake front roundhouse kick that Billy throws right before I grab onto the fence, spin around, grab on the fence, and pass out. And we were moving the cameras. Often you move the cameras in each time when you want to get closer and closer. In this case, I think sometimes they move the mark where I'm standing, sometimes you move the camera. When you're doing this at the end of a day and it's everybody's exhausted, someone didn't move. So for some reason, the fake front roundhouse kick across my face, I was about 6 inches closer to Billy than I shouldn't have been, or maybe he was 6 inches closer.
I know exactly. No, we just not to go too far into it, but basically the camera was behind Ralph, so it was on the side.
Yeah.
So my foot, and when you do a stunt fight, to make it be a hit, it just has to cross a line because it's two-dimensional. So my line was on the side of his face because the camera was here, and then they moved the camera behind him. So the new line was in front of his face.
And I was right next to the mat box. I was right next to the lens was right here.
Yeah. So, and I never adjusted my left foot because I wasn't instructed to. So,
I remember him being instructed to.
It was 4 in the morning and I was so tired.
Anyway, I took one on this side and I went between that and the camera lens and that was the end of that shoot.
You were the only two that knew it. Everybody else thought it was
Yeah, they were like, come on, take
that was
it.
it.
And
it was a bad moment. It really
yeah,
was.
Listen, it could have been a lot worse, but I was sore for more than a bit. And then in the final fight scene, I took one in the ribs as I'm rolling around, and he's in that first sequence when they start fighting. And we finished up shooting right after that. I was back in New York like a week later, and every time I took a deep breath, I was like, "What is that?" And I thought maybe I broke a rib, but I got X-ray. That wasn't our fight, but it didn't hurt till a week later. So you stayed with me. But it wasn't broken rib or anything. But that one in the face, that's a long story, but it's that's good. That's the best part of these panels, getting those little behind the scenes stuff for you guys.
He told me he knew you were in pain, so whenever he saw you, he'd always like, excuse me.
Yeah. He had one of the action figures, little needle. Cobra Kai.
When we did our training, they had us start in pads, and I mean, neither one of us knew martial arts. It was like choreographing dance, is what it really was.
Exactly.
And we would start our whole fight, and they'd have us about a foot or two away from each other throwing air balls, And then we got closer and closer with pads. So I mean, this is like repetitive every day for 4 or 5 hours a day, whatever, for the entire shoot because we shot the fight scene last. So by the time we got to that point, it was almost automatic, and it was great. So our hands came off. It was very safe, and nobody got hurt really.
For the amount of times we did it and ran that fight, scene, especially you know, with the full crowd and everything. It was really awesome because it was just, you know, it's you know, it's fantasy. It's every kid's fantasy. Well, for me, it was fantasy. I had to win.
Yeah, I couldn't wait to get kicked at the end.
It was, you know, we did it a lot over and over and over, and we really, you know, came out unscathed for the most part.
The little bit here of action, physical action that I had, we practiced for a very long time. It was to be, the original ending of Karate Kid 1 was the beginning of Karate Kid 2, where they have a fight in the parking lot. And that was originally, it was written, and then we all waited to do that scene during the shoot of Karate Kid 1, and then they cut it. So I practiced going over the shoulder of Pat Morita in breaking through this van window, and it was supposed to shatter, and then you go through it like that, and it appears that you hit it. 2 years later, we're doing it, and it's now 1986 on the same parking lot, and you know, we practiced, and we did great work, and very exciting, and the special effects guy couldn't blow the glass, so it's supposed to shatter and blow as you pass through it. It looks like you shattered it yourself. Couldn't do it. Lunge punch, I kept hitting the window, and the window wouldn't break. So finally, the special effects guy said, it'll go this time. And so I stopped lunging, I just punched because I had no faith in the guy. And sure enough, it never broke. Went right through the real glass, and shards of glass sticking in my hand through it, you know. And they patched me up within an hour, and we tried to do it again, and still the cat couldn't get the glass to blow. The powder was damp in the door, and it just wouldn't work. So I turned to John Avildsen and I said, this is not the hand of Arnold in the Terminator. He looked at me, and he saw the new skin here, and he says, you're right, it's a wrap. So the next day we did it, coming out with the blood on the head. And that was fake. But going in, if you ever see it again, going in was real fist, real flesh.
Question over here.
First, it was an honor to meet all three of you. Next, Pat, who played Mr. Miyagi, how was it working with him? What was he like?
He was wonderful to work with. There's certain, I call it like a soulful magic that was evident in the, you know, from day one with him and myself. I think those scenes, I mean, obviously they still resonate to this day, and will probably, as long as the movie is viewed, have a special kind of soul and magic to it. One of the things that, although the 2010 remake was a good piece of storytelling, that's one thing that was missing, was sort of that soulful magic. And I think, you know, it was just one of those, I mentioned before, right guy, right kid, right movie, right role, but really for Pat, it was the perfect performer in the perfect role. It was, you know, and they didn't want him for that part. I mean, the director did, the producer did not. And the studio, I think, was on the fence, you know, because he was Arnold from Happy Days, you know. I mean, he's not going to play this great master, but he brought such a human, how do I describe it? I mean, I guess I use the word soulful magic. Those are the best description. And he was very funny, very natural, and he very much knew that this was a role of a lifetime. And I think he knew way before I did that there was something special there. And, you know, it is, you know, Mr. Miyagi is just should be in the dictionary, part of the American lexicon. You know, it's really something special. Great man, great role. We all got great things to say about him and that experience.
Next question over here.
Did you ever take his stuff, like make new, and Kamagi, whatever? You're going to be the next guy and make the new one?
I'm trying to decipher, would I ever
You ever want to be the Miyagi guy?
Okay, I got you. Would I ever want to play the Miyagi role, sort of Miyagi role, and make a new film? Yeah, that's been pitched a bunch of times. The thing is, if someone can write it, and it'd be great. Robert Kamen obviously created all these characters, and if he ever wanted to write that, I would certainly take a real look, as we all would. as these are beloved characters. But you know, it's a slippery slope when you do something that just is blessed on so many levels to try to recreate that. I know the concept of, you know, I have a kid who's in trouble and I become the Miyagi to my own kid, or someone in my life. It just, enough time has gone on that unless it's executed perfectly, I think it could shed not the best light on the legacy of the film. So if you're a great writer and you write it, you could submit it to us.
Another question over here.
Hi guys. First, I just want to say, a while ago, my mom actually got to meet Mr. Miyagi at the Social Security office. My question is,
are you sure it was him?
Yeah, it was him. My question is, what was your guys' favorite cameo to do in your careers?
Favorite cameo for me probably was, I would probably say the Entourage cameo, followed closely by the How I Met Your Mother cameo, which I know is the one you wanted me to say first. The reason I tip it to Entourage only is because that show had just started, and I've been asked to play myself so many times, and I didn't want to do it, and then I finally did, and it turned out to be the right move. And then the fun part about How I Met Your Mother is we got to, you know, work with this clown, and it really, you know, for that whole generation, I was expecting it to be positive, but I wasn't expecting it, and we hear it all the time. So many kids come up and they'll see the Karate Kid that they hadn't seen before based on How I Met Your Mother. And that's really another great way of keeping the legacy of that film going.
Yeah. Same with me. How I Met Your Mother was really fun. The cameo turned into something really fun for me. But the one I really enjoyed the most was Hot Tub Time Machine was a cameo. But I didn't play myself in that. But I played like a twisted version of some character I may have played in the '80s, but older with a mustache and a bad mouth. And I loved that. It was so much fun. They called me out of the blue, but that one I got a phone call for randomly, and they already had finished the movie. If you saw Hot Tub Time Machine, it was already shot in the can, and they just had a dip in the movie, and they called and they had an idea for me to come in. So they told me who was in the cast, and I jumped at it. I said, I'm in. And they said, send me the script, and they sent me the script, and literally every other word was vulgarity, and I'm like, oh no, I can't do this. So I was actually going to I called the casting director the day I was supposed to go meet him to tell her I can't do the film, because it was just like a really crude scene that I was doing, and I had a new family, and I just didn't feel like I wanted to do that. They didn't answer the phone. I said, well, I got to go and meet them anyway. So I went in the meeting, and then they popped up. They shot the movie and had it all cut. So they showed me the movie up to that part. It was so funny. It was so much different. I'm like, okay, what bad words do I have to say? So that was a lot of fun, you know. Yeah.
My experience was doing a commercial, and it was a very strange commercial. It was for an auto parts company, and it had these two characters who I didn't even know, and they were stars of NASCAR, and they're fighting over a can of oil. And then I walk in with my arms folded, and I just come in, and I stare at them, and I say, sweep the leg. And they both turn to me and do nothing. And then I turn away and start to walk off, and I said, I thought I said sweep the leg. And it was hysterical, but it wasn't hysterical for me because they shaved my mustache and they made me look like when I looked at it, they airbrushed everything, so I felt like it was really a bad take. They airbrushed it. I was in the middle of doing another movie, and they took this off. They couldn't take everything off, but they lightened it and then airbrushed it. And it made you look so pale, you looked like you were 85 years old. And but it was very lucrative. But what was so interesting is to say, sweep the leg, and nothing happened. You know, you're so used to that being, you know, the finer point and the fine point of a marvelous movie like Karate Kid, and then you do it in front of 300-400 people, and nothing happened. But that was a charming cameo for me and very lucrative.
We have another question back here.
It's a little bit of a selfish question. I've been doing Tong Sudo for 22 years now, and I want to know, what was it like working with Pat Johnson?
Have you met him ever?
No.
So you're on Tong Sudo?
Yes.
So he's like the grandmaster of.
Yeah, he's up there.
It was. We were literally lucky. he was. All the martial artists that would come in, and they called him Master Johnson. They practically bow and kiss his toes, and we called him Pat.
Yeah.
And the other martial artists were like, "Are you calling him Pat?" Yeah. So to us, he was Pat. So we had a really, it really was. It was like, how dare you call him Pat? And he wrapped his arms around us on a totally different level than if we were going through the traditional training, which he would have just been this intimidating figure. But he's just the sweetest family man, and
he really is. He's the sweetest family.
Yeah.
And so many people would say he is a beast in the on the mat and with what he knows. Great guy. I'm glad I never pissed him off. Great guy. Great.
He ran with Chuck Norris in the 60s and 70s as a tournament partner. I'm really lucky because I still owe him $20. But the bottom line is that Kreese was not Kreese until I took his ki, his ites. That was his ki, and his motions of standing like this, so he could always be free enough to hit somebody, and keeping his hands in his belt. That was all Pat Johnson, and of course he takes no credit for it. But if it wasn't for Pat, the beast in John Kreese could never have come out.
In real life, he has I think it's a Corvette, like a 70-something Corvette, and his license plate says, "I envy no one." That sums him up. He's just a great guy.
We got a question back here.
Did you do the crane kick?
Sure he will. Who wants to get hit by it?
Here's my answer to that.
Billy. I'll do the great kick, yes.
I will do it later to Billy, definitely with vengeance.
Definitely. He's not allowed to do it. It's a whole thing.
No, it's not. It's not completely that. I just draw. I get asked. You cannot imagine. And the only time I do it is when I'm on military bases with the troops and they ask, and we do it together. So I sort of keep it isolated for that those folks, the people who.
And it's an illegal kick, and otherwise Billy would be the Karate Kid right now.
All right, we have a question over here.
Hey, my name's Leslie. So you guys, Martin and Billy, you kind of have had a lucrative career playing bad guys. If you've come to terms with it, how has that been for you, always playing the bad guy?
What? Never played a bad guy in my life. I played misunderstood heroes. Actually, that's not really true, though. But the movies that you know me from and the work you know me from mostly, it's that. But those just were the ones that stuck. So, I did a movie called The Tiger's Tail with C. Thomas Howell and Ann Margaret. I played a really nice kind of dumb jock. I could have played dumb jocks for a while. That just didn't stick. So it's fun, though. Playing a villain is fun. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of range. A good guy, you have certain lines you got to stay in. A bad guy, you can kind of, at least in my experience, you can have a lot more fun with him. There's kind of no rules in a bad guy. As long as
all the best lines from the Karate Kid come from the bad guy. I mean, come on, sweep the leg, put him in a body bag, whatever. What else?
But also, truly, for me as an actor, when I look at a character, I always have to find something that you can relate to and identify with. So, for Johnny, it was the last moment of it when I read the script. Like, I didn't get this guy until the end when he handed him the trophy. I'm like, oh, so that's really who he is. Back to school, I gave him a certain twist. He's really a cowardly lion who wants friends, and he doesn't know how to do it. So, I try to find something I can connect with. So, even though they're played as a bad guy, there's something fun. It's not two-dimensional evil or bad, but there's another layer. So, that's fun. It's fun.
to be an actor. All right, another question back here.
I'm very nervous. Along the lines of the question this gentleman asked, Pat Morita's body double, stuntman, Master Fumio Demura, do you guys have anything to share about him and how he contributed to the movie, to you guys?
Yeah, he was amazing. They're working on a documentary about his life. I think it's in post-production now, called The Real Miyagi. I think that's what it's called, is that right? And because I just recently signed off on, them using some clips and stuff like that. He was the sweetest, nicest, cherubic guy. Yep. But people would tell me he was the badass master. Of all time. Of another level. And I just saw this guy who he treated me so. I don't know why he treated me. I guess I was the star of the movie-ish, but he really treated me with kid gloves and was always so jovial and sweet. But when you see the footage of the way he performed and what a master he was incredible. And you can see that once again on YouTube and stuff like that. You can find that. But he was always a sweet guy. Thank God I stayed on that side of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a question over here.
I just want to tell you guys that you guys have all been three of my favorite actors since way back when. I think I've watched every movie you guys have ever made. And along that line, you guys have obviously worked with a lot of famous people. Martin, what was it like to work with Sylvester Stallone in the Rambo movies? Ralph, what was it like to work with Joe Pesci and My Cousin Vinny? And Billy, what was it like to work with Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School?
Yeah. Well, the working with Sly, Sly and I go back a long time. Ages ago, in the early 70s, we had this old gay German clockmaker who was our personal manager.
I think nobody's videotaping this, Marty.
His name was Kuno Spoonholtz. And Kuno Spoonholtz would get us jobs like Sly would get the job in the Baronet Theater and Usher in the Baronet Theater on 3rd Avenue in Manhattan. I would get a job as Santa Claus in the department store. And our careers began paralleling those jobs. And Sly and I always had a fun time. We did Death Race 2000 together. We had a lot of fun, and I remember being in a motorhome with him, and he had this red cover script, and I think it was 1975. And I would say, well, what is that? And he said, I'm trying to get this boxing movie made. It's really hard, And I said, well, I wish you the best. And a year and a half later, I was unavailable and couldn't come to the screenings. I remember it, and then he didn't talk to me for 5 years. And then we made Rambo together, and I knew. When I read Rambo, I was doing Karate Kid, and when I read Rambo, it was 85 pages of pink typewritten words that were nothing but mayhem. They were just violent. And I knew, following Karate Kid 1, I needed another $100 million grosser. This would be the appropriate movie to do. So I signed on for 3 weeks, got out of Cagney Lacey again, and the rest was history. But he's not hired me for the Expendables, and I'm pissed off.
It was a cold winter's night when I met Joe. I met Joe. I was doing a play on Broadway in 1986 called Coop and His Teddy Bear with Robert De Niro. He played my father, and so Joe would come backstage all the time. And so I knew him, but when My Cousin Vinny came up, and obviously Goodfellas was out at that point, he was on this big upswing. I'd seen Raging Bull 700 times, one of my favorite films. And so I had to audition for My Cousin Vinny, and it took more than a few times to get the studio to give me that part. And he was like, thanks for doing this, really, thanks for doing this. And I was like, I had to get the part. Like, it wasn't like, it wasn't that easy. He's a friend to me, friend to my family, really funny guy, incredibly talented actor, sort of, not always so embracing to everybody. Fortunately, I was on the good side. And my favorite Joe Pesci story, I don't know if I'm running out of time because I want to, but it's a good one. It's a good one. He got to know my wife pretty well at the time. We were newly married, and we were shooting outside Atlanta, shooting my cousin Vinny, and I was driving home and I hit a deer. My wife was hysterical. Oh my God! The deer was not long for the world. It was a terrible thing. Had this accident, slammed on the brakes, hit this deer. My wife is crying hysterically. We pull up to Joe. This is the day before we started shooting because we were going to sort of like a pre-production party, and we were running late. And Joe sees my wife. Says, "What's the matter?" She's hysterical. We hit a deer, and the poor I saw the eyes, and and I'm like, "Honey, I'm sorry. I felt I was miserable. This deer that I just killed this deer." And I'm like, and Joe was like, he was so sympathetic. He was like, "Oh, honey, don't worry about it." He was saying to my wife, he said, I had it happen to me one time in Jersey. I was driving, and I think, you can't do anything about it. And I'm like, "Oh, Joe, I'm so upset." And he gives me a hug, and he's like, "Ralphie, listen, you gotta, there's nothing you could do. I mean, it's one of those things. It's overpopulated. Don't beat yourself up. It's gonna be fine." He's hugging, and he gets in his car. And he goes, "All right, I'm going to go up to the party. I'll see you guys in a minute." My wife finally calms down. We were in a cul-de-sac. And he takes the car and he just starts peeling out. He goes, he spins around the cul-de-sac and he pulls down the window of the car. He sticks his head out and he's going around in a circle going, "Deer killer! Fucking deer killer!" I hope there's not too many little kids. I use the F word, but for Joe, he would always say, "They're just adjectives."
I met Joe at a lakeside golf course in Lake. Have you been there? He loves to go there, and they have fight night there like once a year. I don't know if they're doing it anymore, but Stallone would always go there, and I saw Joe walking around with a cigar. I mean, listen to him walk right out of Goodfellas, though. Like, you don't want to even mess with him, he just walked with his arms around. I've never met him, didn't meet him, but that's a great story.
He's this big.
Rodney Dangerfield. Rodney and I went to high school together, and I got back to school, and it was kind of an offer. They just kind of went and met the cast of people, and then they called me up, and I met Rodney in, where were we, Madison, Wisconsin, and I was just getting there, and he was already shooting, and I remember rolling, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, and I rolled him in my suitcase, getting off the airplane, and he's standing there, and he's in a robe, and his hair's sticking up, and naked under the robe probably, and I get in the elevator with him. It's just weird. I'm like, "Hey, Rodney, I'm Billy Zabka, I'm playing jazz." Yeah, how you doing? I know you are. I said, "Good morning." I said, "Where are you going?" He goes, "Oh, I got to get to the sauna. I got to get the pot out of my lungs." He goes, "Well, you're young, you can handle it." That was my intro to Rodney, and then he was just like, like all these guys that are comedians, they also have a little kind of a soft, tragic side, and he would just kind of open up and tell me like some of his stuff in his life, and I kind of connected with him, and I brought him a Christmas card, and he thanked me at the wrap party for it. Apparently nobody had done that for him, and he was really touched. But the triple Lindy scene, remember this scene when he does the triple Lindy?
Yeah.
So obviously he's not doing that because it's a guy in prosthetics. And he was really insecure when he saw the guy that came out in all his pads, and he was just like, he's like, "Oh, I'm ugly. I'm not that ugly. I'm not that fat." He's like, this guy is, he was serious though. He was like, he goes, "Get him out of my eyes. I gotta go." And he wouldn't even be on the set, and he walked off the set. So he was really like that. But he was sweet. All those guys, Sam Kinison and all that whole cast, and then later after the movie, we go and hang out with the comedy club and watch them do their comedy and all that. And, but really at the wrap party, I was touched. It was actually like at this big kind of country club down in Malibu, and I remember him walking all the way across the room, and I just felt his hand on my back, and he leaned down and he said, "I just want you to know how much it meant to me. He gave me a Christmas card." And he goes, "I'll never forget that." He squeezed my shoulder, and it was just like, these comics, and they're great actors and all that, but they also have like, you only think of him as Rodney Dangerfield, the one-liner, and you're just gonna make you laugh all the time, but he's a person, So I did that, and so we kind of felt bonded with him, and it's always sad when you lose those guys, and Pat included. Pat was the same way. He was super funny and sweet on the outside, but he had a real sensitive kind of soul, and it's nice to get to see that behind the curtain on some of these guys.
One last question. Got one right over here.
One last one.
Okay. So my question was regarding the How I Met Your Mother cameo, and I wanted to know what it was like, since obviously they played up the tragic hero and Ralph is a jerk aspect.
It was listen, we had a blast. I mean, I only did one episode. Billy strung through the whole next, was the next season?
Yeah, no.
The last season. I think it was, that show is such a well-oiled machine. It's so phenomenal, from the writers down to the great director, one of the best multi-camera directors out there, and Pam Fryman, and the cast. They were all very embracing, and they were pretty excited. They had a lot of people come through the doors on that show. I initially passed on it because I had done a few cameos of myself and I felt I was overstaying my welcome there, and then my kids stopped talking to me. Who do you think you are? What are you doing? You're on the couch right now. Get your ass out there. And I said, well, but it was kind of flat, like it was written flatly, at least what I was to do. I was sort of just window dressing. And so when I spoke to the writers and they came up with this concept that I would be Barney's worst nightmare, and everybody was saying I'm more like Barney than anything else, and that made sense to me. And then obviously the payoff for Billy and the clown thing was perfect. It was a great experience for me, my one episode. How were your 9, 10, 12?
Oh, it was scary, actually. No, they called me up, and when a show like that calls and asks if you want to be on it, it's unbelievable. And then they sent me the script, and I'm the clown, and I'm thinking, well, if you're going to bring me back to the network television to put me in a clown suit and not let me say a word, that's a pretty safe bet. So I didn't need to go audition for it. And then I saw Ralph in it. I'm like, Ralph's not going to do this. He's not going to let them call me the real Karate Kid and take all the egg on his face the whole time. And then he's in, and they rewrote it. It was great. And so it was really nice of Ralph to do it. I felt like supported. If I was by myself, I think he had so much weight clearly to it. So it was fun. And then at the very end, I have to take off my clown outfit and put on my gi, and have my gi on, and do the, my little my Cobra Kai bit. And I only had one take, and it was so complicated because I had to take off the wig and the nose and take the makeup off. Yeah, and I had to step on a certain point and pull off my clown thing, and my headband had to show right, and all this stuff. And we had one take to do it. They had to move on. We were about to go to lunch, and I had no direction up to that point. And like 3 minutes before Pam Fryman, the director, comes over, she goes, okay, so first it's the nose, then it's the hair, then it's the makeup, then it's like a mouthful, and it's like, here's like this super incredible show with all these stars on it, and all of a sudden, like, I'm a clown the whole time, and then for like 30 seconds, the spotlight's on me, and I gotta deliver. And I'm telling you, I've never felt more pressure in my life as an actor, for real, because you can't screw that up, like if you screw that up, it's lunch, and you gotta reset the makeup and the whole thing, and so it was good. It just felt fun, and I kind of, I think, nailed it, and and Ralph was laughing. I could see him even in the show. You could see you were kind of busting up at the end. We just had a really good time with it, And then as far as I go, then they called and they kept bringing me back a little bit at a time, and I had no idea where it was going. And normally I would kind of want to micromanage a little, say, well, what am I going to turn into or whatever. But on a show like that, if they're calling you, you just ask no questions. You show up and you trust the writers, and they could throw me off a cliff, and they could maybe be anything, but they had a lot of fun, and it was nice for me to show my comedic side and a different color for me. It meant a lot, and it's been nice to, kind of reconnect with the fans of the movie, because it really all points back to this film, which is why we're here.
We good? Good.
Thank you, guys.